Answering the question about essentially what CDs are and like when you would want to use them, if ever. So CDs stands for certificates of deposit. And from my point of view, they're essentially like, a high yield savings account. The difference is when you put your money in a CD, you have to commit it to the CD for a certain length of time. These can be 3 month CDs, 6 month, 12 month, 3 year, 5 year. The longer you commit the money, the higher interest rate you're going to get. Now, CDs are, like I said, are generally the equivalent of a high yield savings account with a bank, and mostly banks offer them. So the money is theoretically 100% safe. Now, if you were to go get a CD 4 years ago, you would have got like 1.5% on it, and you at that time you'd have to say, "Is this even worth tying my money up?" Nowadays, you can go get a CD and get 5%. So it's definitely kind of come back in favor as a potential vehicle to use to get a return on your money. But the question is like, who should use it and why would you use it? Ultimately, the time or reason you would use a CD is mainly because you don't want to put the money at risk, because you're likely the reason would be is you may need the money in the short term. Now, if you're close to retired or retiree and you have certain amounts of money, you don't want to risk them, so you want to put them in the safest vehicle you can that will get you the most return. But as a retiree, you might have a pot of money and you don't necessarily need all of it at any one time. So you might potentially do a series of CDs, like a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, because you're going to kind of need the money you have over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. So this is money that's making now, say, 5%, which is pretty good, but no risk, which is really what you want. So it definitely makes potential sense for older folks. Does it make sense for younger folks? Well, I would say if this money is something you might need in the short term for any reason, then yes, it could make sense. So is it an emergency fund? Is it to buy a house? Is it to buy a car? Is it something that you're saving you can't risk because you're trying to accumulate it, but you also don't want it to sit in an account and make no return? So a 3 month or 6 month or 12 month CD might make sense for a younger person in that case. As a general investment vehicle for a younger person, I don't think I'd recommend it, because in the long run, you need your money to make more money. So if your investing horizon is at least five, but 10, 15, 20 years, meaning you're, in your 20s, 30s, or 40s right now, you're probably going to be better off in the long run taking more risk in something like stocks, and other, market securities, versus zero risk for the 5% in the CD today. Now, again, you take more risk, so you might get to the end of the next year or two and realize, hey, my money didn't make as much as it could have made in the CD. That might happen, but the next year it might make 10 or 20%. So you got to think about your investment and the investment horizon over 10 to 20 years and the cumulative compound annual growth. But generally, if you use the S&P as a benchmark, the Standard & Poor's, 500 index, everyone uses that as the benchmark of sort of a fully stock-based portfolio, and it's generally over the last 100 years, including reinvested dividends, done about 10 or 11% compound annual growth. So if you look at that as a fully stock invested portfolio versus the 5% on the CD, that's a big difference. Making 5% annual growth on your money for 10 years versus 10% will be a huge, huge, huge difference in the net result of your cumulative funds 10 years later. So do the math always, and think about what the need is for your money in the short term, medium term, and long term, and possibly CDs would be of benefit. Okay, thanks so much. Talk to you later.